My best friend took my husband. I catfished her into ruining her own life. I'm Rachel. And 3 years ago, I almost died for 47 seconds in an emergency room in Portland, Oregon. The doctors told me later that my heart just stopped, like someone flipped a switch. One moment I was convulsing on the gurney, foam coming out of my mouth, and the next I was just gone. They had to shock me twice to bring me back, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I got there. It was a Tuesday morning in March when I made myself the green smoothie that almost ended my life. I remember because Tuesdays were my favorite. My husband Marcus had early meetings, so I'd have the house to myself until noon. I'd make my smoothie, sit by the window, and work on my novel. The one I'd been writing for 3 years. The one nobody knew about except my best friend, Amber. God, even saying her name now makes my stomach turn. Amber had been my best friend since college. We met freshman year when she spilled coffee all over my laptop in the library. She was so apologetic, so genuine, offering to pay for repairs, buying me coffee for a week straight. We became inseparable. She was the maid of honor at my wedding. She was there when my mom passed away. She knew everything about me. Everything. I trusted her with my life. Turns out that was a mistake. That Tuesday morning, I made my smoothie like always. Spinach, banana, protein powder, almond milk. The protein powder was new. Amber had brought it over the week before. Said it was this amazing brand she'd discovered. Organic, life-changing, whatever. She knew I was trying to lose the weight I'd gained after my miscarriage 6 months earlier. The miscarriage. God, that had been the worst period of my life. Marcus and I had been trying for 2 years. When I finally got pregnant, I was so happy I cried for an hour straight. Then at 12 weeks, I lost the baby. Just like that. My body decided it wasn't ready. Marcus was supportive. Amber was supportive. Everyone was so supportive, except I could see it in Marcus's eyes. The disappointment. The way he'd look at me sometimes like I'd failed him. We stopped having sex as much. He started working late. I started eating my feelings and writing my novel and pretending everything was fine. The smoothie tasted weird that morning. Bitter. I almost threw it out, but I'd already measured everything. Already committed. Plus, I'd wasted so much food lately. Been so depressed I'd let things rot in the fridge. I needed to be better, more disciplined, so I drank it, all of it. I made it maybe 20 minutes before the cramps started. At first I thought it was just my stomach being sensitive. I'd been having digestive issues since the miscarriage, but then the cramps got worse and worse. And suddenly I was on the bathroom floor, sweating, shaking, my vision going dark at the edges. I managed to call 911 before I passed out. The next thing I remember is waking up in the hospital 2 days later. Marcus was there. Amber was there. Both of them looking worried and sad and scared. The doctors said I'd ingested a massive amount of brotifacum, rat poison, the kind that causes internal bleeding, organ failure. Someone had mixed it into something I'd eaten or drunk. They'd pumped my stomach, given me massive doses of vitamin K, kept me sedated while my body tried to recover. I'd almost died. Someone had tried to kill me. The police came. They asked questions. They searched our house. They found the protein powder container Amber had given me still in my pantry. They tested it. Nothing. It was clean. They questioned Marcus. They questioned Amber. They questioned my neighbors, my coworkers, everyone I knew. They found nothing. No evidence. No suspects. They classified it as an attempted murder, but the case went cold within weeks. Everyone told me it was probably some random psycho. Someone who'd tampered with products at the store. A 1 in a million tragedy. But I knew it wasn't random. Someone close to me had done this. Someone who had access to my house, my food, my life. Someone who wanted me dead. The problem was I didn't know who, and I couldn't prove anything. So I went home. I recovered. I went to therapy. I took the antidepressants my doctor prescribed. I tried to move on with my life, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Marcus became even more distant after the poisoning. He said he was traumatized by almost losing me, needed space to process. He started going to the gym more, working even later. When he was home, he was on his phone constantly. Amber, on the other hand, became more present. She'd come over almost every day, bringing food, keeping me company, being the perfect best friend. She'd hold my hand and tell me everything was going to be okay, that we'd find whoever did this, that she'd always protect me. It was 5 months after the poisoning when I found Marcus's second phone. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. I was doing laundry and it fell out of his gym bag. A cheap Android phone, the kind you can buy at any convenience store, the kind people use when they don't want to be traced. My hands were shaking when I turned it on. No password, and there they were. Hundreds of messages, photos, videos, all between Marcus and Amber. The affair had been going on for over a year, since before my miscarriage. Maybe the stress of Marcus cheating had caused the miscarriage. That thought made me physically ill, but it got worse. I found messages from the week before I was poisoned. Marcus complaining about me, about how depressed I'd become, how he couldn't leave because of my mental state. It would look bad. How he wished there was a way out, and then Amber's response. What if there was? I sat on my bathroom floor for 3 hours reading through everything. The messages, the plans, the discussions about my life insurance policy. $250,000. Not a fortune, but enough. Enough to start over. They'd been careful. In the actual messages about the poison, they used vague language. The solution? Taking care of the problem. Nothing directly incriminating, but the implication was clear as day. Amber had put the rat poison in the protein powder. Then she'd replaced it with a clean container before the police could find it. She'd almost killed me. And Marcus had known about it. Maybe even helped plan it. The two people I loved most in the world had tried to murder me. I should have gone to the police right then. Shown them the phone. But I knew it wouldn't be enough. The messages were vague. A good lawyer would tear it apart. And Marcus and Amber would know I'd found out. They'd be more careful. Maybe they'd try again. Do it right this time. No, I needed to be smarter. I needed to destroy them the way they'd tried to destroy me. So I copied everything from the phone. Every message, every photo, every video. I put it all on a USB drive and hid it in my mom's old jewelry box. Then I put the phone back in Marcus's gym bag exactly where I'd found it, and I started planning. The first thing I did was see a lawyer without telling Marcus. I wanted to understand my options for divorce. Turns out in Oregon, adultery doesn't matter much for divorce settlements. It's a no-fault state, but attempted murder, that was different. If I could prove Marcus was involved in trying to kill me, I could get everything. The house, the savings, his 401k, everything. But I needed more evidence. The second thing I did was start working out. I lost the weight I'd gained. I started dressing better, doing my hair and makeup, not for Marcus, for me, because I needed to feel strong. I needed to feel like myself again. Marcus noticed. He started paying attention to me again, being affectionate. I played along, let him think his wife was healing, moving on, becoming herself again. Meanwhile, I watched them. I installed installed spyware on Marcus's real phone while he was in the shower. I hacked Amber's email. I was careful, methodical. I documented everything. And that's when I found out about Amber's career. Amber was a pharmaceutical sales rep. She made good money, had been with her company for 8 years, was up for a major promotion to regional director. It was everything she'd been working toward. She'd told me about it 1,000 times, how this promotion would change her life. She'd also been stealing, not money, drugs. I found emails about sample medications going missing, her manager questioning her about inventory discrepancies. Amber was taking prescription drugs from her company and selling them online. Nothing major. Some anxiety meds here, some sleep aids there. Enough to make a few $1,000s extra a month. The company didn't have proof yet, but they were investigating. This was perfect. I spent 2 months gathering evidence, screenshots, recordings, documents. I built a file that would bury Amber professionally, but I wanted more than that. I wanted her to feel what I felt. The betrayal, the confusion, the violation of having someone you trust completely destroy you from the inside. So I catfished her. I created a fake profile on a dating app, used photos of a male model I found on Instagram, called him Ryan Mitchell, made him perfect. Successful entrepreneur, recently divorced, looking for something real. I made Ryan swipe on Amber. It took her 3 days to match with him. Within a week, they were talking every day. Within 2 weeks, she was calling him baby. Within a month, she was in love. I knew Amber, knew how she thought, knew what she wanted. A guy who was successful but vulnerable, someone who needed her, someone who made her feel special. Ryan was all of that. I spent hours crafting his messages, making them perfect. Vulnerable enough to be real, charming enough to be irresistible. I learned things about Amber I'd never known. Her insecurities, her dreams, the way she saw herself. She told Ryan things she'd never told me, about how she'd always been jealous of my relationship with Marcus, how she'd felt like second choice her whole life, how taking Marcus from me made her feel powerful for the first time. She said she didn't regret it. She said I'd been too weak to keep him anyway. She said the rat poison was supposed to look like I'd done it to myself, that I'd been so depressed after the miscarriage that I'd taken the easy way out. Insurance still would have paid. Marcus would have gotten the money, and nobody would have questioned it. She said it wasn't personal. Reading those messages made me want to throw up, but I saved every single one. After 3 months of the online relationship, Ryan suggested they meet in person. He'd be in Portland for business. Dinner at a nice restaurant downtown. Amber was so excited. She bought a new dress, got her hair done, told Marcus she was having a girls' night. Marcus, by the way, had no idea about Ryan. Amber had been cheating on him while they were cheating on me. The irony was almost funny. I didn't show up as Ryan, obviously. I sent Amber a message an hour before the date. Ryan saying he was so sorry. His ex-wife had shown up with an emergency. He had to cancel. He felt terrible. Amber was devastated. She went to the restaurant anyway, sat at the bar, drank 3 martinis, and cried. I know because I was there, not as myself. I wore a wig, glasses, different clothes, sat at the other end of the bar, watched her fall apart. It felt good, but I wasn't done. Over the next month, Ryan became more distant. He was stressed about work. His ex-wife was causing problems. He wasn't sure he was ready for a relationship. All the classic signs of a guy losing interest. Amber panicked. She sent him paragraphs about how much she cared, how she'd do anything, how she needed him. Ryan started asking for things. Nothing major at first. Could she help him understand some medications? He had a friend with anxiety. What would she recommend? What about sleep issues? Amber, desperate to be useful, to keep Ryan interested, started telling him everything. About the drugs she had access to, about how she could get whatever he needed. Ryan said his friend would pay well. Amber said she'd help. And just like that, I had her on record offering to illegally sell prescription medications to a stranger on the internet. I took all of it. Every message, every screenshot, every piece of evidence of her stealing from her company and offering to sell drugs. I compiled it into a detailed report. Then I sent it to her company's HR department and their compliance team from an anonymous email with a subject line that said, "Urgent, employee Amber Chen, theft and illegal sale of controlled substances." That was 3 weeks ago. Amber was fired within 48 hours. The company launched an investigation. They found everything. Years of missing inventory, all tied to her. She's facing criminal charges now. Felony theft, illegal distribution of prescription drugs. Her lawyer says she's looking at 3 to 5 years in prison. Her whole life imploded in less than a week. And Marcus, he didn't even stand by her. The second Amber's life fell apart, he ghosted her, stopped answering her calls, told her they needed to take a break while she dealt with her legal issues. Turns out Marcus only wanted Amber when she was successful and could help him get rid of me. Now that she was facing prison and couldn't benefit him, she was worthless to him. She called me 2 days ago. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. She was crying, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. She said she'd lost everything. Her job, her savings paying for lawyers, her apartment because she couldn't make rent. She said she'd made mistakes, but she didn't deserve this. She said Marcus had abandoned her and she had nobody. She said I was her best friend, the only person she had left. She said she needed help, money for her legal fees, a place to stay, someone to testify to her character in court. She needed me to save her. I let her talk for 15 minutes, let her beg, let her cry, let her explain how scared she was, how alone she felt, how the walls were closing in. Then I said very calmly, "I know what you did." The line went silent. "I know about you and Marcus. I know you poisoned me. I know everything." She tried to deny it. Of course she did. Said I was crazy, paranoid, that the poisoning had messed with my head. So I told her about the second phone, about the messages, about Ryan. Ryan doesn't exist, Amber. I created him. Every message you sent, every secret you told him, every confession about what you did to me, that was me. I was Ryan. I catfished you. And then I destroyed your career with the evidence you gave me yourself. I've never heard someone break down the way Amber did. It wasn't crying. It was this animalistic sound, like her soul was tearing in half. Why? She kept asking. Why would you do this? You tried to kill me, I said. You slept with my husband. You stole a year of my life. You made me feel crazy and paranoid and weak. This is nothing compared to what you did to me. She started screaming then, calling me horrible names, saying I was a monster, saying she'd tell everyone what I did. Go ahead, I said. Tell them how you got catfished into confessing to attempted murder and drug dealing. I'm sure that'll go great for you in court. She hung up. I haven't heard from her since. As for Marcus, I filed for divorce last week. I gave my lawyer everything. The messages, the photos, the evidence of the affair and the poisoning conspiracy. Marcus's lawyer called yesterday trying to negotiate. Apparently Marcus is willing to give me everything if I agree not to pursue criminal charges. I'm thinking about it. Part of me wants to see him in prison. but part of me just wants him gone, out of my life. I want to take everything he has and move on. My therapist says I need to find closure, that revenge won't heal me, that I need to forgive and let go. But here's the thing, I'm not looking for closure. I'm not looking for healing. I spent 6 months thinking I was crazy, thinking I was paranoid, wondering which of my friends or family had tried to kill me, jumping at shadows, terrified to eat anything I didn't prepare myself, having nightmares about drowning in my own blood. They did that to me. They made me live in fear while they planned their future together with my life insurance money. So no, I don't feel guilty about what I did to Amber. She destroyed herself. I just gave her the rope. And Marcus, he'll get what he deserves too. One way or another, I'm selling the house, taking the money from the divorce, moving somewhere new. Maybe Seattle, maybe Denver. Somewhere I can start over. I'm going to finish my novel, the one I was writing when they tried to kill me. It's about betrayal and revenge and a woman who refuses to be a victim. I think it'll be a bestseller. Yesterday, I got a message from an unknown number. Please, Rachel, I'm begging you. They're going to send me to prison. I'll do anything. Just help me, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Amber. She must have gotten a new phone after I blocked her old number. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to tell her that sorry isn't enough. That sorry doesn't undo what she did. That sorry doesn't give me back the year of my life I lost or the security I'll never feel again. But I didn't respond because the truth is, Amber doesn't want me to forgive her. She wants me to save her. And those are two very different things. Forgiveness is for people who are genuinely remorseful, who take responsibility for their actions, who do the work to change. Amber just wants to escape consequences, and I'm done helping people who don't deserve it. So I blocked the new number, deleted the message, and went back to my normal day. This morning I got a call from Marcus. We need to talk, he said. His voice was different, strained, scared. About what? I asked. Amber's threatening to tell the police everything if you don't help her. She says she has nothing to lose now. She'll take us both down. Us? I laughed. There is no us, Marcus. There's you and your mistress who tried to murder me. I'm the victim here. Remember? Rachel, please. Think about what you're doing. If Amber goes to the police, they'll investigate everything. They'll find out about the catfishing, about how you manipulated her. They could charge you with something. Fraud, maybe. Or extortion. I didn't extort anyone. I created a fake dating profile and she voluntarily confessed to crimes. That's not illegal, Marcus. You know what is illegal? Conspiracy to commit murder. He was quiet for a moment. What do you want? He finally asked. I want you to sign the divorce papers. Give me everything. The house, the savings, your 401k, all of it. And I want you to admit on record that you knew Amber poisoned me. I can't do that. I'd go to prison. Then I guess we're at an impasse. Rachel, you have until Friday to decide, Marcus. Sign the papers and give me everything, or I go to the police with all the evidence I have. Your choice. I hung up before he could respond. The thing is, I don't actually know if I want Marcus in prison. Yes, he deserves it. Yes, he's a terrible person who conspired to murder his wife for insurance money. But prison also costs taxpayers money, keeps the system clogged, takes resources from other cases. What I really want is for Marcus to suffer the way I suffered, to lose everything, to feel powerless and afraid and betrayed. And I think I can make that happen without involving the criminal justice system. See, I've been doing more research. Marcus works in finance. He's a wealth management advisor at a big firm downtown. The kind of firm that cares very deeply about reputation and trustworthiness. I've been thinking about what would happen if his clients found out he tried to murder his wife for insurance, money. I've been thinking about anonymous emails, blog posts, social media campaigns. I've been thinking about how hard it would be for Marcus to find work in Portland after everyone knows what he did. My therapist would probably say this is unhealthy, that I'm becoming obsessed. That revenge is consuming me and preventing me from moving on. But here's what my therapist doesn't understand. I already died once. For 47 seconds in that emergency room, I was gone. And in that space between living and dying, something in me changed. I came back different, harder. I came back knowing that life is short and people are terrible. And if you don't fight for yourself, nobody else will. So that's what I'm doing. Fighting. It's been 3 days since I gave Marcus the ultimatum. He hasn't called, hasn't signed the papers, hasn't responded to his lawyer. I think he's hoping I'll blink first, that I'll get scared or guilty or tired and just take a regular divorce settlement and move on. He doesn't understand that I have nothing to lose. I already lost everything that mattered. My husband, my best friend, my sense of safety, my ability to trust anyone. You can't threaten someone who's already been to the bottom. This morning, I went to visit Amber. Not in person. God no. But I drove past her apartment, the one she got evicted from. There was a moving truck outside. People carrying boxes. Her whole life being packed away. I wondered where she was going. If she had family who'd take her in. If Marcus would swoop in at the last minute and save her. Then I remembered that Marcus only cares about Marcus. And I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No guilt. No anger. Just nothing. Maybe that's the scariest part of all this. I used to be someone who felt things deeply. Who cried at movies and worried about hurting people's feelings and wanted everyone to like me. Now, I look at the wreckage of Amber's life and feel nothing. My phone rang while I was sitting in my car watching The Movers. Unknown number again. Against my better judgment, I answered. Rachel. It was Amber's voice, but barely. Hollow. Broken. My sentencing hearing is next week. They're recommending 4 years. 4 years in prison, Rachel. Please. I know I don't deserve your help. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I'm begging you. If you testify that I had mental health issues, that I was having a breakdown, it might reduce my sentence. Please, I can't survive 4 years in prison. You tried to kill me, I said quietly. Did you think I could survive rat poisoning? Did you care? I was different then. Marcus manipulated me. He made me think, don't. My voice came out sharp. Don't you dare blame Marcus for your choices. You're a grown woman. You decided to sleep with my husband. You decided to put poison in my protein powder. You made those choices. Own them. I am owning them. That's why I'm asking for mercy. Mercy? I almost laughed. Where was my mercy? Where was your mercy when I was convulsing on my bathroom floor? When my heart stopped beating? When I woke up in the hospital wondering who hated me enough to try to murder me? She was crying now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't mean anything, Amber. Sorry is just a word people say when they want something. What can I do? Tell me what to do to make this right. There is nothing you can do. You can't unpoison me. You can't give me back the year of paranoia and fear. You can't make me trust people again. There is no making this right. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I realized I was crying. Not for Amber. For myself. For the person I used to be. The person who believed in second chances and forgiveness and the basic goodness of people. That person is dead. Amber killed her. That night, Marcus showed up at my door. I watched him through the peephole peephole. He looked terrible. Unshaven, wrinkled suit, hair messy. I'd never seen Marcus look anything less than perfectly put together. I know you're in there, Rachel. Please, let me in. We need to talk. I opened the door but left the chain on. You have 2 minutes. I'll sign the papers. You can have everything. The house, the money, all of it. Just please don't go to the police. Why should I believe you? You've lied to me for over a year. Because I'm desperate. His voice cracked. Rachel, I made a mistake. A huge mistake. But I don't want to go to prison. Please. Did you know Amber was going to poison me? Did you help her plan it? He looked at his shoes. That was answer enough. Get off my property, Marcus. Wait, please. I'll do anything. Anything except take responsibility for your actions. Anything except actually face consequences. You want me to save you just like Amber does. But here's the thing, Marcus. I don't save people who tried to kill me. I didn't try to kill you. That was Amber. You knew about it. You encouraged it. You talked about my life insurance and how to make it look like I did it to myself. I have the messages, Marcus. All of them. His face went white. How? Your burner phone. The one you thought was so clever. I found it. Copied everything. Put it back. You never even knew. He leaned against the door frame like his legs might give out. You've had evidence this whole time? Since 2 months after you tried to kill me? I've been gathering more ever since. Then why didn't you go to the police? I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile, because I wanted to destroy you my way. The police would have been too quick, too clean. I wanted you to lose everything slowly. I wanted you to watch your life fall apart piece by piece, and I wanted you to know that I did it. Marcus stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Who are you? I'm the woman who survived you and your mistress trying to murder her. I'm the woman you underestimated. I'm the woman who's going to make sure you never hurt anyone else. You're crazy. No, Marcus. I'm awake. For the first time in my life. I'm actually awake. I closed the door in his face. He pounded on it for 5 minutes before finally leaving. I sat on my couch in the dark, listening to him drive away, and I felt alive. For months after the poisoning, I'd felt like a ghost. Like I was watching my life happen from outside my body. Like nothing was real. But this felt real. Tomorrow I'm going to the police. I'm giving them everything I have. The messages, the evidence, all of it. Marcus and Amber are going to prison. My therapist will probably say I should have done this months ago. That I took things too far with the catfishing and the revenge. But my therapist didn't almost die on her bathroom floor. My therapist doesn't wake up every morning and have to remember that her husband and best friend tried to kill her. My therapist doesn't know what it's like to have your trust in humanity shattered so completely that you can't even eat at restaurants anymore because you're terrified someone will poison your food. So my therapist doesn't get to judge me. Nobody does. I did what I had to do to survive. And if that makes me a bad person, then I guess I'm a bad person. I'd rather be a bad person who's alive than a good person who's dead. The police detective I met with was a woman named Jennifer Liu. She was in her 50s, stern-faced, with short gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. I gave her the USB drive with all the messages from Marcus's burner phone. Gave her the evidence of Amber's confession about the poisoning that she'd made to Ryan. I gave her everything. She listened to my whole story. Didn't interrupt once. Just took notes and watched me with those tired eyes. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You understand that catfishing someone could potentially be considered fraud in some circumstances? I created a dating profile. She voluntarily confessed to crimes. I didn't threaten her or coerce her. You manipulated her. She tried to murder me. Detective Liu nodded slowly. Fair point. Are you going to arrest me? For what? Being smarter than the people who tried to kill you? She almost smiled. No, Ms. Carter. I'm going to arrest your husband and your former friend for attempted murder and conspiracy. When? They'll both be in custody by end of day tomorrow. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to be a long, ugly process. You'll have to testify, relive everything. They'll try to paint you as vindictive, manipulative, maybe even make you look like the bad guy. Let them try. Detective Liu did smile then. I like you, Ms. Carter. Most victims in your situation just want to curl up and hide. You want blood. They tried to kill me. Why shouldn't I want blood? No reason at all. Just be prepared. This is going to get messy. She was right. Marcus and Amber were arrested the next day. It made the local news. Local wealth manager and pharmaceutical rep arrested in attempted murder plot. The story exploded online. Reddit threads, Twitter conversations, TikTok videos. Everyone had an opinion. Some people thought I was a hero, a survivor who fought back. Others thought I was a villain, that I'd gone too far with the catfishing and revenge. I didn't care either way. The trial took 8 months to get to court. 8 months of depositions and lawyers and evidence review and endless waiting. Marcus's lawyer tried to argue that I'd entrapped Amber, that the catfishing constituted illegal manipulation, and her confession should be thrown out. The judge disagreed, said that while my methods were morally questionable, they weren't illegal. Amber's lawyer tried to argue that she'd been suffering from severe mental health issues, that Marcus had manipulated and controlled her, that she wasn't in her right mind. The prosecutor tore that argument apart, showed the jury messages where Amber had bragged about taking Marcus from me, where she'd called me weak and pathetic, where she'd said she didn't regret what she'd done. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Marcus was found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, sentenced to 12 years in prison. Amber was found guilty of attempted murder, sentenced to 15 years. I was in the courtroom when the verdicts were read, watched both of their faces as they realized their lives were over. Marcus looked shocked, like he'd actually believed he'd get away with it. Amber just looked empty, like there was nothing left inside her. I felt nothing watching. Them led away in handcuffs. I thought I'd feel vindicated, satisfied, like justice had been served. But mostly I just felt tired. The media circus continued for a few more weeks. I gave one interview to a local newspaper, said all the right things about healing and moving forward and trusting the justice system. I didn't tell them that I still check my food obsessively before eating, that I can't drink anything I haven't prepared myself, that I wake up at 3 a.m. sometimes in a panic, convinced someone is in my house trying to poison me again. I didn't tell them that revenge didn't heal anything. It just gave me something to focus on instead of falling apart. I didn't tell them that I still have nightmares about dying on that bathroom floor. The divorce was finalized 3 months after the trial. I got everything. The house, the savings, Marcus's 401k, even his car. I sold it all. The house had too many memories. The money felt tainted. I donated half of it to organizations that help survivors of domestic violence and attempted murder. Kept the rest for myself. Moved to Seattle like I'd planned. Got a small apartment with a view of the water. Started over. It's been a year now since the trial. 2 years since I went to the police. 3 years since the poisoning. I finished my novel. It's with an agent now. She thinks she can sell it. I have a new therapist in Seattle. She's better than the old one. Doesn't push forgiveness. Understands that trauma doesn't heal on a timeline. I'm dating someone new. His name is Cameron. He's kind and patient and has no idea who I am or what happened to me. I'll tell him eventually. When I'm ready, most days I'm okay. I go to work at the bookstore I manage. I come home and write. I text with my sister. I live my life, but some days I'm not okay. Some days I look at the people around me and wonder which ones are secretly monsters. Wonder who's plotting against whom. Wonder if anyone is ever really safe. Those are the hard days. Last week I got a letter from Amber. My lawyer forwarded it. Said I didn't have to read it if I didn't want to. I almost threw it away. Almost. But curiosity got the better of me. The letter was 7 pages long, handwritten. Her handwriting was shaky, not like I remembered. She said she was sorry. Again. Said prison had given her time to think, to understand what she'd done, to see how wrong she'd been. She said she'd been jealous of me her whole life, that I'd had things she wanted, the happy marriage, the nice house, the creative career. That taking Marcus from me had made her feel powerful for the first time. She said the poisoning was Marcus's idea, that he'd convinced her it was the only way they could be together, that he'd told her I'd never agree to a divorce, that my life insurance was their only option for a real future together. She said she'd been weak and stupid and desperate to be loved. She said she understood if I never forgave her, that she didn't deserve forgiveness, but she wanted me to know that she thought about me every day, about what she'd done, about the person she'd been. She said prison was changing her, that she was getting therapy, taking classes, trying to become someone better. She said she hoped I was happy, that I'd found peace, that I was living the life I deserved. She said she'd spend the rest of her life trying to atone for what she'd done to me. The letter ended with, "You were the best friend I ever had. I destroyed that. I destroyed you. I destroyed myself. I'm sorry doesn't cover it, but I'm sorry anyway. I hope someday you can think of me without hatred. That's all I can hope for now." I read that letter 3 times, then I put it in a drawer and haven't looked at it since. I don't know if I believe her. I don't know if people really change, or if Amber is just saying what she thinks I want to hear. I don't know if I'll ever forgive her, if forgiveness is even something I'm capable of anymore. What I do know is that I survived. Marcus and Amber tried to kill me, and I survived. I didn't just survive, I fought back. I took control. I made them face consequences for what they'd done. Some people say that makes me as bad as them. That revenge is never the answer. That I should have taken the high road, but those people weren't poisoned by their best friend and husband. Those people didn't die for 47 seconds on an emergency room gurney. Those people don't know what it's like to have to rebuild your entire life from scratch because the people you loved most in the world tried to take it from you so they don't get to judge me. I did what I had to do and I'd do it again. Sometimes late at night when I can't sleep, I think about that Tuesday morning 3 years ago, making my smoothie, sitting by the window, working on my novel, so naive, so trusting, so completely unaware that I was drinking poison. I think about the woman I was then, soft, kind, believing the best in people. That woman is gone. She died on that bathroom floor, and something harder, sharper, more dangerous was born in her place. I miss her sometimes. The woman I used to be, the woman who could trust and love and believe in happy endings. But I don't miss her enough to want her back because that woman almost got me killed. This new version of me, she survives, and in the end, that's all that matters. Survival. Everything else is just details. Last night, I had a dream. I was back in the emergency room looking down at my body on the gurney. The doctors were shocking me, trying to bring me back. But in the dream, I wasn't scared. I was deciding if I wanted to come back, if the world was worth coming back to. In the dream, I saw 2 paths. One where I stayed dead, where Marcus and Amber got away with it, where I became just another tragedy, another cautionary tale, and one where I came back, where I fought, where I made them pay. In the dream, I chose to come back. I chose revenge over peace. I chose survival over forgiveness. I chose to be hard instead of kind. I woke up and I wasn't sure if I'd made the right choice, but it's the choice I made, and I have to live with it. We all have to live with our choices. Marcus is living with his in a prison cell in Eastern Oregon. Amber is living with hers in a women's correctional facility downstate, and I'm living with mine in a small apartment in Seattle, writing this story, trying to make sense of what happened, trying to understand who I am now, trying to figure out if the woman who fought back was a hero or a villain, trying to decide if it even matters, because at the end of the day, I'm still here, still breathing, still living, and Marcus and Amber aren't. Not really, they're ghosts now, shadows of who they used to be, just like I am. Maybe we're all ghosts, all shadows, all just fragments of who we thought we'd be. Maybe that's what betrayal does. It kills who you were and forces you to become someone new, someone harder, someone sharper, someone who survives, and maybe that's enough. Maybe survival is enough. Maybe I don't need to be the hero or the villain. Maybe I just need to be the woman who survived, the woman who fought back, the woman who refused to let them win. That's who I am now, and maybe someday I'll be okay with that, but not today. Today, I'm still figuring it out, still putting together the pieces, still trying to build a life from the wreckage of the old one. It's not easy. Some days it feels impossible, but I'm doing it. One day at a time, one breath at a time, one story at a time, and maybe that's all anyone can do. Survive and try to figure out what comes next. That's all, folks. Thanks for watching till the end. Subscribe for daily updates.
How did your twin ruin your life? I'm Sarah, and I have an identical twin sister named Emma. We're 28 now, but this whole mess started about 3 years ago. People always assume that being an identical twin is this magical bond thing, like you share some psychic connection or whatever. Let me tell you right now, that's complete garbage. Emma and I looked exactly the same, down to the tiny scar on our left eyebrow from when we crashed our bikes into each other when we were 7. But personality-wise, we couldn't have been more different. I was the responsible one, the planner, the one who actually showed up to things on time. Emma was Emma, spontaneous, charming, and completely unreliable. The day everything started falling apart, I was sitting in my cubicle at Morrison & Associates, this mid-sized marketing firm in downtown Seattle. I'd been working there for 2 years, climbing my way up from intern to junior account manager. It wasn't glamorous, but I was good at it, and my boss, Janet, had been hinting about a promotion to senior account manager. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Emergency. Can you cover for me tonight? Please, please, please. I stared at the message. Emma worked as a server at this upscale restaurant called Meridian. She was always asking me to cover her shifts because she'd gotten sick or had some last-minute date or whatever excuse she'd come up with that week. The problem was, I'd done it so many times that the manager, Carlos, thought I actually worked there too. What's the emergency this time? I texted back, food poisoning. I'm dying. Literally dying. I rolled my eyes. Emma's version of food food poisoning usually involved too much wine and poor life choices. But Carlos was a decent guy, and I knew he'd be in a bind if Emma just didn't show up. Fine, but you owe me. You're the best sister ever. I love you so much. Yeah, right. So that evening, instead of going home to my apartment and binge watching Netflix like a normal person, I found myself putting on Emma's black server uniform and heading to Meridian. The restaurant was one of those places where a single entree costs more than most people spend on groceries in a week. White tablecloths, dim lighting, and customers who think they're doing you a favor by eating there. I'd covered for Emma enough times that I knew the routine. Smile, take orders, don't spill anything on the expensive suits. Easy enough. About 2 hours into my shift, I was taking an order from this table of business people when I heard someone call my name. Well, Emma's name, but you know what I mean. Emma, there you are, beautiful. I turned around and saw this guy walking toward me. Tall, dark hair, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my rent. He had this confident smile and these really intense green eyes. For a second, I just stood there like an idiot because honestly, he was gorgeous. Do I know you? I asked. He laughed, and it was one of those laughs that makes you want to hear it again. Very funny. Did you forget about our date already? I'm wounded. Date? Emma hadn't mentioned anything about a date. But then again, Emma mentioned a lot of things and forgot to mention even more. I'm actually working right now, I said, gesturing to my uniform. I can see that. I thought we were meeting after your shift. I'm David, by the way. David Chen. He extended his hand, and when I shook it, I felt this little electric shock. Not literally, but you know what I mean. Right. David. Of course. I had no idea who this man was, but I didn't want to embarrass Emma. My shift ends at 10. Perfect. There's this new wine bar that just opened on Pine Street. Thought we could check it out. Before I could think of a reason to say no, he was leaning in closer. You look different tonight. Good different. Like you're actually present, you know? I didn't know what that meant, but something about the way he said it made my stomach do this weird flip thing. I should get back to work, I managed to say. See you at 10. Emma. The rest of my shift was a blur. I kept thinking about David and wondering how Emma had met him, and why she hadn't mentioned him when she asked me to cover for her. Emma told me everything, usually whether I wanted to hear it or not. At exactly 10 p.m., I clocked out and found David waiting by the hostess stand. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, and somehow he looked even better than before. Ready? He asked. I should have gone home. I should have called Emma and told her that her date had shown up. I should have done a lot of things differently, but instead I found myself saying, let's go. The wine bar was intimate, with exposed brick walls and soft jazz playing in the background. David ordered a bottle of something expensive, and we found a corner table away from the other couples. So, he said, pouring wine into our glasses, tell me something real about yourself. What do you mean? Every time we've talked, it feels like you're performing, like you're playing a character. But tonight you seem, I don't know, more genuine. I took a sip of wine, trying to figure out what to say. Obviously, I couldn't tell him I wasn't actually Emma, but his comment about performing made me curious about what my sister had been like with him. Maybe I'm just tired, I said. Good tired or bad tired? Is there a difference? He leaned back in his chair, studying my face. With you, I'm never really sure. We talked for 2 hours. About books, travel, our jobs, our families. Well, I talked about my job. He thought I was Emma, so I had to pretend I was a server instead of a marketing professional. David was a software engineer at one of the big tech companies downtown. He was funny and smart and actually listened when I talked, which was not something I was used to with the guys I usually dated. Can I ask you something? He said as we were finishing our second bottle of wine. Sure, what changed? A week ago, you barely seemed interested in getting to know me. Tonight, it's like I'm talking to a completely different person. My heart started racing. A week ago, Emma had been on this date, not me. And apparently she'd been, what, uninterested? Playing hard to get? Being Emma? Maybe you just caught me on a good night, I said. When he walked me to my car, he hesitated before saying goodnight. I really enjoyed tonight. Emma, I hope we can do this again soon. I'd like that, I heard myself saying. He kissed me then, soft and sweet, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a really long time. Like maybe I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I drove home in a daze, David's number saved in my phone and his kiss still tingling on my lips. I couldn't wait to call Emma and ask her about him. Why hadn't she been interested? How had she met him? And most importantly, would she mind if I saw him again? But when I called her apartment, there was no answer. And when I tried her cell phone, it went straight to voicemail. The next morning, I showed up at Emma's apartment with coffee and bagels, ready to have the conversation about David. Emma lived in this tiny studio in Capitol Hill that was somehow always messier than seemed physically possible. She answered the door in pajamas, her hair in a messy bun, looking perfectly healthy. Food poisoning, huh? I said, holding up the coffee. Oh, that. Yeah, I'm feeling much better. She didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. Emma, we need to talk about last night. What about it? Thank you for covering, by the way. You're literally the best sister ever. Your date showed up. Emma paused, a piece of bagel halfway to her mouth. My what? David Chen, tall, dark hair, works in tech. He was expecting to meet you after your shift? Oh, Emma set down her bagel. Oh no. What do you mean, oh no? Who is he? Emma started pacing around her tiny apartment, which meant she took about 3 steps in each direction. Okay, so I might have gone on a date with him last week, through one of those dating apps. He seemed nice enough, but he was so serious, you know? Like he wanted to have these deep conversations about life and relationships, and I was just looking for something fun. So you stood him up? I didn't stand him up. I just forgot we had plans. This was so typical Emma. She collected men like souvenirs and then forgot about them just as quickly. Well, I went out with him, I said. Emma stopped pacing. You what? He thought I was you. I didn't want to embarrass you, so I went along with it. We went to that new wine bar on Pine Street, and I felt my cheeks getting warm. And it was really nice. He's really nice. Emma stared at me for a long moment, then burst out laughing. Oh my god, Sarah, you have a crush on my leftover date. He's not your leftover anything. You weren't even interested in him. I know, but it's still weird. What if he figures out you're not me? That was a good question. David and I had made plans to see each other again this weekend. I'd been looking forward to it all morning, but now I was starting to realize how complicated this could get. Maybe I should tell him the truth, I said. Are you crazy? He'll think we're both insane. Just, I don't know, figure it out later. After you've had some fun. Emma had this way of making terrible ideas sound reasonable. And honestly, the thought of never seeing David again made my chest feel tight. You're sure you don't mind? Sarah, I have 3 other guys I'm talking to right now. Trust me, David Chen is all yours. So that's how I ended up living a double life. During the day, I was Sarah, junior account manager at Morrison & Associates. In the evenings and on weekends, I was Emma, the server at Meridian who was dating this amazing guy named David. For 2 months, it was actually perfect. David and I fell into this easy rhythm of dinner dates and long walks around the city. He'd pick me up after my shifts at the restaurant, and we'd explore different neighborhoods, or try new restaurants, or just sit in his Apartment talking until midnight. He was everything I'd been looking for in a partner without even realizing I was looking. He was ambitious but not ruthless, funny but not mean, confident but not arrogant. He remembered things I told him and asked follow-up questions about my day. When I was with him, I felt like the best version of myself. The only problem was that he thought I was Emma. I kept meaning to tell him the truth. Every time we were together, I'd plan out exactly how I was going to explain everything. But then he'd smile at me or take my hand or say something sweet, and the words would just die in my throat. Besides, what was the harm? Emma didn't want him. And it wasn't like I was catfishing him or anything. He was falling for me, just under the wrong name. The first crack in my perfect little fantasy came on a Tuesday night in December. David and I were having dinner at this Italian place near his apartment when his phone rang. Sorry, it's my sister. She only calls when it's important. He answered the phone. Hey Lily, what's up? I could hear the voice on the other end. High-pitched and panicked, but I couldn't make out the words. Slow down. What happened? David's face went serious. Is she okay? Which hospital? My stomach dropped. Something was wrong. I'll be right there, David said, hanging up. He turned to me with this stricken look. My mom was in a car accident. She's in the hospital. I have to go. Of course. Do you want me to come with you? He paused, and for a second I thought he was going to say yes. Then he shook his head. Thanks, but it's going to be family only for a while. I'll call you when I know more. He kissed me quickly and left cash on the table for dinner. I watched him practically run out of the restaurant, and I felt this overwhelming urge to follow him, to be there for him during what was obviously a crisis. But I couldn't, because as far as his family knew, he was dating a server named Emma, not a marketing professional named Sarah, and Emma and David had only been dating for 2 months. It would be weird for her to show up at a family emergency. I went home to my apartment and spent the night staring at my phone, waiting for an update. David finally texted me around 3 a.m. Mom's stable. Surgery went well. We'll call you tomorrow. He didn't call the next day, or the day after that. By Friday, I was starting to panic. I'd sent a few supportive texts, but I didn't want to be pushy when he was dealing with a family crisis. Still, the silence was killing me. That's when I made my first really stupid decision. I decided to check on him. I knew where David lived because I'd been to his apartment several times. It was in one of those converted warehouse buildings in Belltown, with big windows and exposed beams. Very bachelor, very Seattle. I bought a casserole from the grocery store and some flowers, thinking I'd drop them off with a note, just to let him know I was thinking about him. It seemed like something a caring girlfriend would do. His building had a doorman, but I'd been there enough times that the guy recognized me. Hey, Emma, haven't seen you around this week. David's been dealing with some family stuff. I thought I'd bring him dinner. That's sweet. Go on up. I took the elevator to the 7th floor, my heart pounding the whole way. What if David didn't want to see me? What if I was overstepping? What if his whole family was there? I knocked on his door, holding my casserole and flowers like some kind of 1950s housewife. The door opened, and David was standing there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking exhausted. His hair was messy, and he had dark circles under his eyes. Emma, he said, and he sounded surprised, but not unhappy to see me. I brought food, I said, holding up the casserole. I figured you probably haven't been eating much. For a second, he just looked at me. Then he stepped aside to let me in. That's really thoughtful. Thank you. His apartment was messier than I'd ever seen it. There were coffee cups everywhere and takeout containers on the counter. It looked like he'd been living on caffeine and Chinese food. How's your mom? I asked, setting the casserole down in the kitchen. She's going to be okay. It was touch and go for a while, but the doctors say she'll make a full recovery. He rubbed his face with his hands. I've been at the hospital basically non-stop since Tuesday. Why didn't you call me? I would have brought you food there too. David sat down on his couch and patted the cushion next to him. I sat down close enough that our knees were touching. I don't know. I guess I didn't want to drag you into all this family drama. We haven't been dating that long. 2 months wasn't very long, objectively, but it felt like longer. It felt like we'd been together for years. I would have wanted to be there for you, I said. He looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. You're different than I thought you were, Emma. What do you mean? When we first met, I thought you were fun, but kind of superficial, I guess. Like you were more interested in having a good time than actually connecting with someone. But over the past 2 months, you've surprised me. You're deeper than you pretend to be. My chest felt tight. He was describing the difference between Emma and me, but he didn't know that. Maybe you just didn't know me very well at first, I said. Maybe. He leaned over and kissed me, soft and grateful. Thank you for coming over. I really needed this. We spent the evening on his couch eating casserole and watching terrible movies. David fell asleep around 10, his head on my shoulder, and I just sat there listening to him breathe and feeling like my heart was going to explode. I was in love with him, completely desperately in love, and he was in love with someone who didn't exist. The next week, David's mom came home from the hospital and things went back to normal, or what passed for normal in my weird double life. David and I resumed our regular date nights, and I went back to pretending to be Emma. But something had shifted. The night I brought him dinner, the way he'd looked at me when he talked about me being deeper than he'd thought. It made me realize how much I was lying to him. And to myself, I started dropping hints about telling him the truth. Little comments about how people weren't always what they seemed, or how important honesty was in relationships. But every time I got close to actually saying something, I'd chicken out. Christmas was coming, and David mentioned that he wanted me to meet his family. His mom was doing well, and his sister lived in Portland, so they were all getting together for the holidays. I've told them so much about you, he said over dinner one night. My mom is dying to meet the woman who brought her homemade casserole during her recovery. You told your mom about that? Of course I did. It meant the world to me, Emma. I think that's when I realized I was falling in love with you. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. You're falling in love with me? I'm already there, actually. He reached across the table and took my hand. I love you. This was it. This was the moment I should have told him everything. Should have explained about the twin switch and the fake identity, and how I'd been lying to him for 3 months. But instead I heard myself saying, I love you too. And I did. I loved him so much it physically hurt. But he didn't love me. He loved Emma. Or his version of Emma, which was really me pretending to be Emma, which was so confusing I was starting to give myself headaches thinking about it. Meeting his family was obviously out of the question. I couldn't pretend to be Emma in front of people who would remember details and ask questions, so I started making excuses. I had to work. I was sick. My family had their own plans. David was disappointed, but he didn't push. He was too nice to push, which somehow made me feel even worse about lying to him. On Christmas Eve, I was at my parents' house with Emma, opening presents and pretending everything was normal. My mom made her famous prime rib, and my dad told the same terrible jokes he'd been telling since we were kids. Emma was regaling everyone with stories about her latest dating disasters, and I was half listening while checking my phone for texts from David. You're being weird, Emma said during a brief pause in her monologue. I'm not being weird. You're being weird. You keep checking your phone, and you have that look you get when you're overthinking something. My parents had gone into the kitchen to start cleaning up, so it was just Emma and me in the living room with the wrapping paper and empty wine glasses. I need to tell you something, I said. Emma sat up straighter. Oh God, what did you do? I'm still seeing David. David who? Oh wait, my David? The guy from the dating app. He's not your David. You went on one date with him and forgot about it. Okay, fine. You're David. So what's the problem? I took a deep breath. The problem is that he thinks I'm you, and he told me he he loves me, and I told him I love him back. Emma stared at me for a long moment, then she started laughing. This is not funny, I said. It's a little funny. Sarah, you're living in a rom-com. Just tell him the truth. If he really loves you, it won't matter what your name is. It's not that simple. I've been lying to him for 3 months. What if he thinks I'm crazy? What if he never wants to see me again? Then he's not the right guy for you. Easy for her to say. Emma had never been in love with anyone for longer than a few weeks. She didn't understand what it felt like to find someone who fit so perfectly into your life that you couldn't imagine existing without them. Will you help me? I asked. Help you what? Tell him the truth. Maybe if you're there to explain about the twin thing, it won't seem so crazy. Emma considered this. Sure, but you have to promise me something. What? After this, no more covering my shifts at Meridian. I need to find a job that doesn't involve you pretending to be me. I laughed despite myself. Deal. We planned it for the day after Christmas. I was going to text David and ask him to meet me at a coffee shop downtown, somewhere public but quiet where we could talk. Emma would show up partway through the conversation to help explain everything. It seemed like a reasonable plan. What could go wrong? Everything, as it turned out. The coffee shop I chose was this little place called Grind Coffee, tucked between a bookstore and a vintage clothing shop on Capitol Hill. I got there early and claimed a table in the back corner, nursing a latte and rehearsing what I was going to say. David arrived right on time, looking handsome in a dark wool coat and scarf. He kissed me hello and sat down across from me, ordering a black coffee from the server. You sounded serious on the phone, he said. Is everything okay? We need to talk about something important. His face went carefully neutral. Are you breaking up with me? No, nothing like that. It's just, this is going to sound crazy. David reached across the table and took my hand. Try me. I took a deep breath. Do you remember the first night we went out when you said I seemed different than usual? Of course, there's a reason for that. I need to tell you something about myself. Something I should have told you months ago. This was it. The moment of truth. I opened my mouth to explain about Emma and the twin switch and everything that had led to this moment, and that's when I saw her. Emma was supposed to show up in about 20 minutes, after I'd had a chance to explain the basics. But there she was, walking through the front door of the coffee shop 15 minutes early, wearing my exact same coat and scarf. But she wasn't alone. She was with a guy, tall, dark-haired, wearing an expensive-looking suit. They were laughing about something, and he had his arm around her waist in a way that suggested they knew each other very well. I felt the blood drain from my face. The guy she was with looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. Not until they got closer and I could see his face clearly. It was David, not my David, a different David, but they looked so similar they could have been brothers. Same height, same build, same dark hair and green eyes. If you saw them from a distance, you'd think they were the same person. Emma spotted me and froze. Her face went through about 17 different expressions in the span of 2 seconds, finally settling on panic. Sarah, my David said, following my gaze. Do you know them? I couldn't speak. I just sat there staring as Emma and her David approached our table. Emma, her David said, looking confused. What are you doing here? I thought you were working tonight. And that's when I realized what had happened. Emma hadn't forgotten about her date with David Chen. She'd been seeing a different David. David Kim, maybe? Or David Johnson? Or David something else. And when I'd started dating David Chen, neither of us had realized we were dating 2 different Davids. My David looked back and forth between me and Emma, his expression shifting from confusion to shock to something like understanding. You're twins, he said quietly. I can explain, I started to say. But Emma, in typical Emma fashion, chose that moment to make everything infinitely worse. Oh my god, she said loudly. You're dating my twin sister? That's so weird. Both Davids stared at her, then at me, then at each other. Your twin sister? My David said slowly. This is Sarah, Emma said, gesturing at me like I was a prize on a game show. She's been covering my shifts at the restaurant. I can't believe you two met. Emma's David was looking back and forth between us like he was watching a tennis match. Wait, you work at Meridian? I thought you said you were a server. I am a server, Emma said at the same time I said, I'm not a server. The silence that followed was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. My David let go of my hand. Let me get this straight. You're not Emma. You're Sarah, and you've been pretending to be your twin sister for the past 3 months. I can explain, I said again. Please do. So I explained. About covering Emma's shift that first night, about meeting him and not wanting to embarrass my sister, about planning to tell him the truth but never finding the right moment. I explained about falling in love with him, and being terrified that he'd hate me if he knew I'd been lying. When I finished, David was quiet for a long moment. Emma and her David had taken seats at a nearby table, presumably to watch the drama unfold. So you're not a server, my David said finally. No, I work in marketing, at Morrison and Associates, and your name is Sarah, not Emma. Yes, and you've been lying to me for 3 months. I winced. Yes, David sat back in his chair, running his hands through his hair. I don't know what to say, Sarah. I mean, I don't even know if I should call you Sarah. I've been calling you Emma for 3 months. I'm sorry, I whispered. I know I should have told you sooner. I didn't know how. How about with words? Like, hi, I'm actually Sarah, not Emma. And I've been pretending to be my twin sister because I didn't want to embarrass her. That would have been a good start. I could feel tears starting to build behind my eyes. Are you breaking up with me? David looked at me for a long moment. I don't know. I need some time to think about this. The person I fell in love with, she doesn't exist, does she? She's some combination of you and your sister and whoever I thought Emma was supposed to be. That's not true, I said. Everything between us has been real. Every conversation, every moment we've spent together. That was all me. The only thing that was fake was my name and your job and God knows what else. How do I know anything you've told me is true? I didn't have an answer for that, because he was right. I had been lying to him consistently and deliberately for 3 months. The fact that I'd been lying about stupid things didn't make it better. David stood up. I need some time to process this. I'll call you when I'm ready to talk. When will that be? I don't know. He left without saying goodbye. And I just sat there at the coffee shop table, crying into my lukewarm latte while Emma and her David pretended not to watch me fall apart. Emma eventually came over and sat in David's abandoned chair. That went better than expected, she said. I stared at her. In what universe did that go well? He didn't yell. He didn't throw his coffee at you. He said he'd call. He said he'd call when he was ready to talk. That could be never. It could also be tomorrow. You don't know. Emma's David had left at some point during the conversation, probably to escape the awkward family drama. Smart man. I can't believe you showed up early, I said. And with another David of all people. His name is David Kim. We've been seeing each other for about a month. How was I supposed to know you were dating a different David? You could have mentioned him. You could have mentioned yours. We sat there glaring at each other for a few minutes. Then because crying in public was making me feel worse, I got up and left. David didn't call that day, or the next day, or the day after that. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office and taking on extra projects. Janet, my boss, was thrilled with my sudden burst of productivity and started talking more seriously about that promotion. But even work couldn't distract me completely. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a text or a missed call or some sign that David was ready to forgive me. A week after the coffee shop disaster, Emma showed up at my apartment with Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. You look terrible, she said, pushing past me into the living room. Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear. I'm serious. When's the last time you washed your hair? I tried tried to remember and couldn't. That was probably a bad sign. Emma started unpacking the Chinese food while I opened the wine. We ate in relative silence for a while until she finally said, "Have you heard from him?" "No." "Maybe you should call him." "And say what?" "I already apologized. I already explained everything. The ball is in his court now." "The ball is in your court," Emma corrected. "You're the one who lied for 3 months. You're the one who needs to fix this. I don't know how to fix it." He said he needed time to think, so I'm giving him time to think. "How much time?" "However much time he needs." Emma rolled her eyes. "Sarah, you're an idiot. You're just sitting here waiting for him to decide whether or not you're worth forgiving. What about what you want? Do you want to be with him?" "Of course I want to be with him. I love him." "Then fight for him. Show up at his apartment with a grand gesture. Write him a letter. Do something other than sitting here feeling sorry for yourself. What if he doesn't want to see me? Then at least you'll know. Right now, you're just torturing yourself with uncertainty." Emma was right, as much as I hated to admit it. I was being passive, waiting for David to make all the decisions about our relationship. But relationships were supposed to be partnerships, weren't they? I had just as much say in what happened next as he did. The next evening, I found myself standing outside David's apartment building, holding a letter I'd written and rewritten about 50 times. It was 2 pages long and covered everything from my initial motivation for lying to my feelings for him to my hopes for our future. The doorman recognized me, but he looked uncertain. "Hey, Emma, or sorry, what should I call you?" "Sarah, my name is Sarah." "Right, Sarah. Is David expecting you?" "No, but I really need to see him. It's important." The doorman hesitated, then shrugged. "Go ahead up, but if he complains, I'm blaming you." I took the elevator to the 7th floor, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. This was either going to be the most romantic gesture of my life or the most humiliating. I knocked on David's door and waited. After what felt like an eternity, I heard footsteps approaching. The door opened and David appeared, wearing jeans and a sweater I bought him for his birthday. He looked surprised to see me, but not angry. "Sarah," he said. Hi. "I know you said you needed time to think, but I have something I need to give you." I held out the letter. "You don't have to read it now. Or ever, if you don't want to." But I needed to write it. David took the letter, turning it over in his hands. "What is it?" "Everything I should have said 3 months ago, and some things I should have said last week, and probably some things I shouldn't say at all, but I wrote them anyway." He smiled just slightly. "That sounds like you. The real me or the fake me?" "There is no fake you, Sarah. That's what I've been thinking about this week. The person I fell in love with is real. She just has a different name than I thought." My heart jumped. "Does that mean?" "It means I read your letter and we'll talk. Come in." I followed him into his apartment, which was much cleaner than it had been the last time I'd seen it. He gestured for me to sit on the couch while he made coffee. "I have to admit," he said from the kitchen, "this whole twin thing explains a lot." "Like what?" "Like why you seemed so different that first night we went out. And why you sometimes seemed surprised when I referenced things we'd talked about before. I thought you were just distracted or playing hard to get." I winced. "I'm sorry I made you doubt yourself." David came back with 2 cups of coffee and sat down next to me on the couch. Close enough that our knees were touching, but not so close that it felt presumptuous. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Anything. Why didn't you tell me the truth after our first date?" I mean, I could understand the initial confusion, but after that, I'd been asking myself the same question for weeks. Honestly, because I was terrified you wouldn't want to see me again if you knew the truth. And then after a few dates, it felt too late to bring it up without seeming crazy. And then I was in too deep. "But you must have known I'd find out eventually." I kept thinking I'd tell you next week or next month or when the timing was right. "There was never a right time?" David nodded slowly. "I understand that. But Sarah, the timing was right on our first date. It was right on our second date. It was right every single time we were together." He was absolutely correct, and I didn't have a good argument against that. "I know," I said quietly. "I was selfish. I wanted to keep seeing you, and I was afraid the truth would ruin everything. The lying almost ruined everything." "Almost?" David set down his coffee cup and turned to face me fully. "I spent the last week trying to figure out if I could trust you again. If I could trust someone who had been lying to me for 3 months about something as basic as her name." My stomach dropped. "And what did you decide?" "I decided that trust isn't just about never lying. It's about what you do when you realize you've made a mistake. And showing up here tonight with a letter full of apologies and explanations, that tells me something about who you really are. What does it tell you? That you're brave enough to fight for what matters to you, even when you're scared." I felt tears starting to build behind my eyes again, but this time they were good tears. "Does this mean you forgive me?" "I forgive you, but we need to start over. No more lies, no more pretending to be someone you're not. I want to get to know the real Sarah, not the version of Emma you were performing. The real Sarah is messier," I warned him. "She overthinks everything and makes pro and con lists for major decisions and has strong opinions about proper dishwasher loading techniques." David laughed. "I can't wait to meet her." He kissed me then, and it felt like coming home after a long trip. Everything was going to be okay, except it wasn't, because 3 weeks later, Emma ruined everything. I should have seen it coming. Emma had been unusually quiet since the coffee shop incident, which was never a good sign. When Emma was quiet, it usually meant she was planning something. But I was so caught up in my reconciliation with David that I didn't pay attention to the warning signs. David and I were officially starting fresh, which meant introducing him to my real life, my real job, my real friends, my real interests. It was like dating someone new, except better because we already had all this history together. He came to my office to take me to lunch one day, and Janet was so impressed with him that she spent 20 minutes telling him embarrassing stories about my first month on the job. David thought it was hilarious. I was mortified, but in a good way. We went to my college roommate's birthday party, where David charmed everyone by remembering their names and asking thoughtful questions about their careers. My friends loved him, which was a relief because my last boyfriend had been what my roommate tactfully called an acquired taste. Everything was perfect. Too perfect, probably, which should have been my first clue that something was about to go wrong. The something that went wrong was Emma. I was at David's apartment on a Sunday morning, reading the paper in bed while he made breakfast when my phone rang. Emma's name flashed on the screen. "I should take this," I told David. "She only calls this early if something's wrong." "Sarah?" Emma's voice was shaky, which immediately put me on high alert. "I need your help." "What happened?" "I did something stupid. Really, really stupid. And I need you to cover for me." "Here we go again." "Emma, what did you do? Can you just come over?" I can't explain this over the phone. I looked at David, who was flipping pancakes and humming under his breath. We'd planned to spend the whole day together. Maybe go for a hike or check out that new museum exhibit he'd been wanting to see. "Can it wait a few hours?" "No, it can't wait. Sarah, I'm serious. This is bad." The panic in Emma's voice convinced me. As annoying as my sister could be, she wasn't usually dramatic about real problems. "Okay, I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up and started getting dressed. David looked disappointed but not surprised. "Emma, emergency?" he asked. "Apparently. I'm sorry. I know we had plans. It's fine. Family first." He kissed my forehead. "But I'm keeping the pancakes." I drove to Emma's apartment with a growing sense of dread. Emma's definition of something stupid could range from bouncing a check to accidentally setting her kitchen on fire. With Emma, you never knew. She answered the door still in pajamas, her hair unwashed and her eyes red from crying. "Oh good. You're here." She pulled me inside and immediately started pacing. "Emma, what happened? You're scaring me." "Okay, so remember David Kim? The guy I've been seeing? You're David? Yes. Well, it turns out he's married. I stared at her. He's what? Married. With 2 kids. His wife found out about us and showed up at my apartment last night. Oh my god, Emma. It gets worse. She took pictures. Of me, of my apartment, everything. She says she's going to ruin my life. This was bad. Really bad. Emma had a talent for getting herself into complicated situations, but this was next level even for her. What did you say to her? Nothing. I mean, I didn't know he was married. He told me he was divorced. How was I supposed to know he was lying? Did you ask to see the divorce papers? Emma gave me a look that suggested this was a ridiculous question. Of course you didn't, I muttered. The point is, his wife is crazy. She's threatening to call my boss, my landlord, my parents. She says she's going to make sure everyone knows I'm a homewrecker. Technically, you didn't wreck their home if you didn't know they had a home. Tell that to his wife. Sarah, she has pictures. What if she posts them online? What if she makes some kind of website about me? I could see why Emma was panicking. In the age of social media, a vindictive spouse could definitely make someone's life miserable. Okay, let's think about this rationally. What exactly does she want? She wants me to stay away from her husband, obviously. But she also wants me to— God, this is so embarrassing. What? She wants me to write him a letter explaining why I can't see him anymore. And she wants to watch me do it. Like, she wants to sit here while I write it to make sure I don't try to contact him after she leaves. That's weird, but doable. Just write the letter and be done with it. I can't. Why not? Emma stopped pacing and looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. Because I don't know how to write, I blinked. What do you mean you don't know how to write? I mean, I'm terrible at writing. You know that. Remember in school when you used to write all my book reports and essays? That was true. Emma had always struggled with writing assignments, and I'd helped her more often than I probably should have. Emma, you're 28 years old. You have to know how to write a basic letter. I can write, obviously, but not well. And this has to be perfect. If she thinks I'm not taking this seriously, she'll post those pictures everywhere. I was starting to see where this was going. You want me to write the letter? Would you, please? You're so much better at this stuff than I am. Emma, I can't write a breakup letter to your married boyfriend. That's insane. It's not a breakup letter. It's more like a please don't ruin my life letter. Same difference. Emma sat down on her couch and put her head in her hands. I don't know what else to do. If I write it myself, it'll sound stupid and she'll think I'm not taking this seriously. But if you write it, it'll sound professional and sincere. I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell Emma that she'd gotten herself into this mess and she could get herself out of it. But she was my sister and she was genuinely scared. Fine, I said. But this is the last time I'm cleaning up one of your messes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Emma jumped up from the couch. She's coming back at 2 o'clock. That gives us 3 hours to write the perfect letter. We spent the next 2 hours crafting what was probably the most diplomatic breakup letter in history. I tried to strike a tone that was apologetic without being groveling, sincere without being overly emotional. Emma paced around her apartment, occasionally offering suggestions that I ignored. At exactly 2 o'clock, there was a knock on Emma's door. That's her, Emma whispered, like the woman might be able to hear us through the door. Emma opened the door to reveal a woman in her 40s with short, blonde hair and the kind of rigid posture that suggested she was barely keeping her anger in check. She was well dressed in that understated, wealthy way, carrying a designer handbag and wearing shoes that probably cost more than my rent. Mrs. Kim, Emma said nervously. Have you written the letter? The woman asked, pushing past Emma into the apartment. Yes. My sister helped me write it. Emma gestured to me. This is Sarah. Mrs. Kim looked me up and down with obvious disapproval. Your sister? We're twins, Emma said unnecessarily. Mrs. Kim's expression shifted slightly, like she was seeing me clearly for the first time. Twins. I'll read you the letter, Emma said quickly, trying to redirect the conversation. But Mrs. Kim wasn't paying attention to Emma anymore. She was staring at me with this strange intensity. What did you say your name was? She asked me. Sarah. Sarah what? I told her my full name and her face went completely white. And you work where? Morrison and Associates. It's a marketing firm downtown. Mrs. Kim sat down heavily in Emma's desk chair. Oh my god, what? Emma and I said at the same time. Mrs. Kim looked back and forth between us, her expression shifting from anger to something like horror. You're the Sarah my husband has been talking about for the past 3 months. The room went dead silent. I'm sorry, what? I managed to say. My husband David, he works at Pinnacle Software. For the past 3 months, he's been talking nonstop about this woman Sarah he met at a marketing conference. Sarah, who works at Morrison and Associates. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. David Kim works at Pinnacle? You know him? We've met at a conference, but we've never— we're not, but even as I said it, I was remembering conversations with my David about work, about his colleagues and his projects, and I was starting to realize that some of the stories he told me sounded familiar. Mrs. Kim was still staring at me like I was a ghost. He talks about you all the time. Sarah from Morrison and Associates. He says you're brilliant and funny, and that he's never met anyone who gets his sense of humor the way you do. But I started to say, then stopped. Because suddenly I was remembering every conversation I'd had with David over the past 3 months. Every story he'd told about work, every joke he'd made, every time he'd mentioned a colleague or a project. David Chen from Pinnacle Software. David Kim from Pinnacle Software. They weren't 2 different Davids. They were the same David. My David was David was Mrs. Kim's husband. Oh my god, I whispered. Emma was looking back and forth between me and Mrs. Kim like she was watching a tennis match. I don't understand what's happening, she said. Mrs. Kim stood up abruptly. I need to go. I need to think about this. She headed for the door, then turned back. The letter, she said to Emma. I still want you to write the letter, and I want you to stay away from my husband, both of you. After she left, Emma and I just stared at each other for a long moment. Sarah, Emma said slowly, please tell me that your David and my David are not the same person. I think they are, but that's impossible. Your David is single. My David is married. Your David told you he was divorced. Same thing. It's not the same thing at all. Emma sat down on her couch looking shell-shocked. So the whole time I've been dating a married guy, you've been dating the same married guy? Apparently. But how did he manage that? How did he keep us from finding out about each other? I was asking myself the same question. David and I saw each other 2 or 3 times a week. Emma had been seeing her David about the same frequency. How had he managed to juggle 2 relationships without either of us realizing? And then it hit me. The business trips, I said. What? David travels for work sometimes. He's gone for a few days every couple of weeks. I always thought it was weird that his company sent him out of town so much for a software job. David Kim told me he traveled for work too, Emma said quietly, because he was traveling to see his wife and kids. The business trips weren't business trips. They were him going home to his family. We sat in silence for a few minutes, both of us trying to process what we'd just learned. Sarah, Emma said said finally. We're both dating a married man who's been lying to everyone in his life for months. I'm not dating him anymore, I said automatically. Right, obviously. Me neither. But even as I said it, I felt this crushing disappointment. Not just because David had been lying to me, but because I'd been so happy. For the first time in my adult life, I'd felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And it had all been built on lies. I have to tell him I know, I said. Emma nodded. We both do. How? I don't know. Call him and say what? Hey, funny story, turns out you're married and we're both your girlfriends? Something like that. I pulled out my phone and stared at David's number in my contacts. David Chen, it said, because that's how he'd introduced himself. But apparently, his real name was David Kim. Even his name had been a lie. I hit call before I could change my mind. Hey, beautiful. David's voice came through the speaker, warm and familiar. How's the Emma emergency? For a second, I couldn't speak. He sounded so normal, so much like the man I'd fallen in love with, that it was hard to believe he was the same person who'd been living this elaborate double life. David, I said finally, we need to talk. Something in my tone must have alerted him because his voice changed. What's wrong? I know about your wife. The silence that followed lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Sarah, he said finally, and he sounded tired. I can explain. Can you? Because I'm having trouble understanding how you've been married with 2 kids this whole time we've been dating. Where are you? Emma's apartment. I'm coming over. David, I don't think, but he'd already hung up. Emma and I spent the next 20 minutes pacing around her apartment, rehearsing what we were going to say when David arrived. Well, I rehearsed. Emma mostly just asked panicked questions about whether we were going to get sued or arrested or somehow blamed for breaking up a marriage. When David knocked on the door, my heart started racing. I hadn't seen him since our reconciliation breakfast 3 days ago, when everything had still been perfect between us. Emma opened the door and David walked in looking exactly like he always did. Handsome, confident, wearing that same expensive suit he'd been wearing the day I first met him at Meridian. Emma, he said, nodding to my sister. Then he looked at me. Sarah, so you do know we're 2 different people, I said. David had the grace to look embarrassed. I've known since the beginning. What do you mean since the beginning? I mean, I knew you weren't Emma the first night we went out. Identical twins aren't actually identical in every way. You hold yourself differently. You laugh at different things. You ask different questions. I stared at him. If you knew I wasn't Emma, why didn't you say anything? Because I was more interested in getting to know you than I was in Emma. She was fun for one date, but you were different. So you just went along with it? You let me think I was fooling you? At first I thought you were playing some kind of game. Then I realized you were covering for your sister and I thought it was sweet. By the time I figured out that you didn't know I knew, we were already what? Already falling in love. Even now, even knowing everything I knew about him, those words still made my chest tighten. You're married, I said. David sat down on Emma's couch, running his hands through his hair. It's complicated. It's really not. You're either married or you're not. I'm separated. Have been for over a year. We're just waiting for the divorce to be finalized. Your wife doesn't seem to think you're separated. My wife doesn't want the divorce. She's been dragging out the process, hoping I'll change my mind. So you decided to start dating other people? I decided to try to be happy. I've been miserable for years, Sarah. My marriage was over long before I met you. Emma, who had been uncharacteristically quiet during this exchange, finally spoke up. What about me? Was your marriage over when you started seeing me too? David looked at her like he'd forgotten she was there. That was different. How was it different? You were just fun. Someone to grab drinks with occasionally. It wasn't serious. I thought it was serious, Emma said. And for the first time since I'd known her, she sounded genuinely hurt instead of just dramatic. I never told you I wanted anything serious. I was always upfront about not being ready for a relationship because you were already in a relationship with my sister. David looked back and forth between us. Look, I know this is messy. I know I should have handled things differently, but I never meant for anyone to get hurt. Well, congratulations, I said, because everyone is hurt. Me, Emma, your wife, probably your kids. My kids don't know anything about this yet. David stood up and started pacing, which was apparently the family response to stress. What do you want me to say, Sarah? That I'm sorry? I am sorry. I'm sorry I lied to you about being married. And I'm sorry I let you think you were fooling me about being Emma. But I'm not sorry I fell in love with you. Don't, I said quietly. Don't what? Don't tell me you love me. Not now, but I do love you. That's the one thing that's been real in all of this. My feelings for you. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But how could I trust anything he said when he'd been lying to me about the most basic facts of his life? If you loved me, you would have told me the truth. If I told you the truth, you never would have given me a chance. That should have been my decision to make. David stopped pacing and looked at me. You're right. You're absolutely right. I was selfish and I was wrong and I hurt you. But Sarah, what we have is real. Can't we figure out a way to make this work? You're married. I'm getting divorced. When? Soon. When, David? I don't know exactly when. These things take time. Like how much time? David hesitated and I knew the answer wasn't going to be what I wanted to hear. Maybe another year. Maybe longer if she keeps fighting it. I felt something inside me break. A year. It'll go faster once I find a new lawyer. The one I have now is useless. You've been separated for over a year and you haven't even found a decent divorce lawyer? It's complicated, Sarah. There's property involved and custody arrangements and stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. What? Stop making excuses. If you really wanted to get divorced, you'd be divorced by now. Or at least you'd have a lawyer who could give you a timeline that's more specific than maybe another year. David opened his mouth to argue, but I kept talking. You like this arrangement. You get to have a wife and kids at home and a girlfriend on the side and another girlfriend for when you want something casual. You get to be married and single at the same time. That's not it is. And the worst part is that you've made me complicit in it. I've been helping you cheat on your wife for 3 months without even knowing it. David sat back down looking defeated. What do you want me to do, Sarah? Tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it. I looked at him sitting there in Emma's messy apartment, still wearing his expensive suit, still looking like the man I thought I was going to marry someday. And I realized that I didn't want him to do anything. I want you to leave, I said. I want you to go home to your wife and kids and figure out what kind of person you want to be. And I want you to leave me and Emma alone while you're doing it. Sarah, I'm serious, David. Don't call me, don't text me, don't show up at my office or my apartment. We're done. David looked like he wanted to argue, but something in my expression must have convinced him not to. He stood up and headed for the door. For what it's worth, he said, turning back one more time, I really did love you. Both of you, in different ways. After he left, Emma and I sat in silence for a long time. That sucked, Emma said finally. Yeah. Are you okay? I considered the question. My heart was broken. I'd spent 3 months falling in love with someone who didn't exist, and then another few weeks thinking we could work through anything together. I'd been betrayed by the person I trusted most and lied to about the most fundamental aspects of his life, but I was also relieved, because now I knew the truth, and I could stop living in a fantasy. I think I will be, I said. What are we going to tell Mom and Dad? I'd forgotten that our parents had met David during our reconciliation phase. They'd loved him, obviously, because David was charming and successful and treated their daughter well, or seemed to. We'll figure it out. Emma nodded. Sarah? Yeah? I'm sorry I got you into this mess. You didn't get me into anything. I made my own choices. But if I hadn't asked you to cover my shift shift that night, then I never would have met David at all. And honestly, even knowing how this all turned out, I'm not sure I'd change that. Emma looked surprised. Really? Really? For 3 months, I was happier than I'd ever been. That has to count for something, right? Even though it was built on lies, the lies were about his marriage and his name. But the way he made me feel, the conversations we had, the way we fit together, that was real. I know it was real because I lived it. So you don't regret it? I thought about it. I regret that he was married. I regret that he lied to me. I regret that I lied to him, but I don't regret loving him. Emma smiled. The first real smile I'd seen from her all day. You're a better person than I am. No, I'm not. I'm just trying to learn from this instead of letting it make me bitter. What are you going to do now? Now I'm going to go home, take a very long shower, and then I'm going to throw myself into work. Janet's been talking about that promotion, and I think it's time to go after it seriously. And dating? What about dating? Are you going to start seeing other people? I laughed, but it came out a little hollow. Emma, I just found out that the love of my life is married with 2 kids. I think I'm going to take a break from dating for a while. How long is a while? However long it takes for me to trust my own judgment again. That might take a while. Yeah, it might. But as it turned out, life had other plans. 2 weeks later, I got the promotion at Morrison & Associates. Senior account manager with a corner office and a 20% raise. Janet threw a little celebration in the conference room, and all my coworkers signed a card congratulating me on my hard work and dedication. I should have been thrilled. I'd been working toward this promotion for 2 years, and I'd earned it. But sitting in my new corner office, looking out at the Seattle skyline, I felt strangely empty. Everything I'd thought I wanted was finally falling into place. Great job, nice apartment, financial security. The only thing missing was someone to share it with. I was staying late at the office that Thursday, working on a presentation for a new client, when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer it because I didn't recognize the number. Sarah? The voice was female. Unfamiliar. Yes? This is Jennifer Kim, David's wife. My blood went cold. It had been 2 weeks since our confrontation at Emma's apartment, and I'd assumed that David had told his wife he'd ended things with both of us. Mrs. Kim, hello. I was wondering if we could meet for coffee. There are some things I'd like to discuss with you. I'm not sure that's a good idea. Please. I think you'll want to hear what I have to say. Something in her tone made me curious despite myself. When? Tomorrow evening? There's a Starbucks on Pine Street near your office. How do you know where my office is? David told me. He tells me a lot of things. This was getting stranger by the minute. Mrs. Kim, I want you to know that I had no idea David was married when we started seeing each other. If I'd known, I know. That's part of what I want to talk to you about. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. I spent the entire next day at work trying to focus on my clients and failing spectacularly. What could David's wife possibly want to discuss with me? Was she going to ask me to stay away from her husband? Threaten me? Blame me for destroying her marriage? I got to Starbucks 15 minutes early and claimed a table in the back corner where we could have some privacy. Jennifer Kim arrived exactly on time, looking much calmer than she had at Emma's apartment. She was actually quite pretty, I realized. The kind of understated elegance that comes from good bone structure and expensive skincare. She was wearing a simple black dress and minimal jewelry, but she looked polished in a way that I always envied, but could never quite achieve. Sarah, she said, sitting down across from me. Thank you for meeting me. Mrs. Kim, before we start, I want to apologize again. I never intended, please call me Jennifer. And you don't need to apologize. You're not the one who's married, but I still feel terrible about the whole situation. Jennifer smiled sadly. David has that effect on people. He makes you feel like you're the center of his universe, right up until you realize you're just one planet in his solar system. I'm not sure I understand. David and I have been married for 8 years. We have 2 beautiful children, a nice house in Bellevue, and on paper, the perfect life. He said you were separated. We are. As of 3 weeks ago. I blinked. 3 weeks ago? But when I found out about your marriage, you seemed married? I was. David and I were very much married right up until the day I discovered he was living a double life. This was confusing, but you came to Emma's apartment like you knew about their relationship. I knew about Emma. I'd been following David for weeks, trying to figure out why he was acting so strange. I saw him with your sister several times, so I confronted him. And he told you about Emma, but not about me? Jennifer laughed, but there was no humor in it. He told me about Emma because he thought Emma was the only other woman. He had no idea I knew about you. How did you know about me? I hired a private investigator. When David confessed to the affair with Emma, I thought there might be more. I was right. Jennifer pulled out a manila envelope and placed it on the table between us. These are the photos my investigator took of David over the past 3 months. I stared at the envelope like it might explode. I don't think I want to see those. You should see them. They'll help you understand who David really is. Against my better judgment, I opened the envelope. Inside were dozens of photos of David. David leaving his house in Bellevue in the morning. David at his office. David meeting me for dinner. David meeting Emma for drinks. David at a hotel with a woman I didn't recognize. Who's this? I asked, pointing to the photo of David with the unknown woman. Her name is Rachel. She's a paralegal at his company. They've been seeing each other for about 6 months. I stared at the photo. 6 months? But he didn't start seeing Emma until 4 months ago. And he didn't meet you until 3 months ago. I felt sick. How many women is he seeing? As far as I can tell, 4, including you and Emma. There might be more. I set the photos down and pushed the envelope away. Why are you telling me this? Jennifer leaned forward. Because I want you to understand that none of this is your fault. You didn't break up my marriage. David broke up my marriage by being a serial cheater who can't commit to any one person. But you were so angry at Emma's apartment, you made it sound like she was destroying your family. I was angry. But I was angry at David, not at Emma, or you. You were both just victims of his lies. I'm not a victim, I said automatically. I made choices. You made choices based on information David gave you. Information that was completely false. I thought about this. It was true that every decision I'd made about David had been based on lies he'd told me. I thought he was single. I thought he was genuinely interested in a serious relationship. I thought he was honest. What are you going to do? I asked Jennifer. I'm divorcing him. I already filed the papers. And I'm going to make sure he doesn't get anywhere near my children until he gets some serious therapy. What about the other women? Rachel and whoever else? That's up to them. I'm not their mother. Jennifer paused. But I wanted to warn you and Emma because you both seemed like decent people who got caught up in David's web of lies. Thank you, I said, and I meant it, for telling me the truth. There's one more thing. Jennifer reached into her purse and pulled out a small piece of paper. David's been trying to contact you, hasn't he? She was right. David had been calling and texting constantly for the past 2 weeks. I'd been ignoring all of his messages, but he was persistent. He wants to meet with you to explain everything. He's been telling me that he's ready to leave me for you, that you're the love of his life. My heart did a little flip despite everything I knew about David, but he's also been telling Rachel the same thing. And probably Emma too. The little flip turned into a crash. David doesn't love any of us, Jennifer continued. David loves the idea of being irresistible to multiple women. He loves the thrill of managing different relationships and different personas. We're not people to him. We're trophies. I looked at the piece of paper she'd given me. It was David's real address, the house he shared with Jennifer and their kids. What am I supposed to do with this? Whatever you want. Show up and confront him in front of his children. Have him arrested for fraud. Mail it back to him with a message telling him to leave you alone. I don't care. Where? Jennifer stood up to leave, then turned back one more time. For what it's worth, Sarah, I think you dodged a bullet. David would have done the same thing to you eventually that he did to me. You just found out sooner. After she left, I sat in Starbucks for another hour, staring at David's address and thinking about everything Jennifer had told me. 4 women. David had been juggling 4 different relationships, lying to all of us about the most basic facts of his life. And according to Jennifer, he was still trying to convince each of us that we were special, that we were different, that we were the one he really loved. I thought about the David I'd fallen in love with, the way he listened, the way he made me feel seen. And then I thought about the man in those photos, the one who coordinated alibis and calendar entries the way some people coordinate outfits. The version of him I loved was real in the smallest, most stubborn way. The conversations, the jokes, the late-night admissions. But the life built around those moments? A house of cards. After Jennifer left Starbucks, I did the most boring grown-up thing I could think of. I went back to work. Not because I wanted to hide, but because the promotion waiting on my desk suddenly mattered in a different light. If I was going to rebuild anything, my life, my self-respect, I needed to start with something solid and true. Work was that something for now. That night, after I locked up the office and stood in my corner office staring at the city lights, I called Emma. She answered on the second ring, voice small. Hey, she said. Meet me at my place in 20, I said. She was there in 15, hair still damp from a shower, wearing one of my oversized sweaters like she always did when she wanted to comfort herself and not the world. We ordered Thai and sat on my couch like 2 exhausted conspirators. We need a plan, Emma said between bites. Not a David plan, a we plan. We wrote a list. On the top, block his number. Delete his photos. Clean out any lingering texts. Down the page, tell mom and dad together, tell friends if we needed to, and, the important one, go no contact until we actually wanted to see the kind of person who could be trusted at face value. I did call Jennifer. She answered on the first ring. We agreed on one more meeting. Not to ambush David, not to plot revenge, but to coordinate. Jennifer had filed for divorce and had a lawyer who was actually moving. She wanted the other women to be safe, and as it turned out, she wanted us to stop looking like the only people in on his secret. There was power in numbers, she said, and a small comfort in knowing we weren't the only ones who thought we were the only one. A week later, we met again. Rachel was there, awkward and quiet and furious in the way people become when their illusions are stripped away. Emma and I sat across from Jennifer as she slid over a thick manila folder. This is everything, she said. Photos, emails, receipts. I want you to have it. I want it to be clear. This night, this decision is on him. There was a kind of ugly relief in the exchange. Giving proof to each other was not about gloating. It was about ending the guessing game. When you can point to the thing that was wrong, it stops feeling like your fault. We planned the practical stuff, changed security settings, revoke a few mutual contacts, make sure family members who might be accidentally dragged in had the right information. Jennifer said she would make the divorce public if she had to. I said I would hand any incriminating messages to HR if David tried to contact me at my office. He did. He sent a single pleading email the next day that I forwarded unread to Janet's assistant with the subject line, HR FYI. Janet, to her credit, handled it with more compassion than either David or Emma deserved. You did the right thing, she said when I explained, and I believed her. Then she gave me a new client to lead, a fast one, with big opportunity. Work was starting to look like a ladder again, not an escape route. Emma and I had a harder, messier conversation with mom and dad a few evenings later. We told them together, halting and honest. They cried in the kitchen and hugged us, and then asked awkward questions about how 2 grown women could be so thoroughly hoodwinked. There were lectures, of course, mostly from dad, but also a lot of listening. It helped to say it aloud. The lies, the laughter, the way we'd both given someone pieces of ourselves. Time did what time always does. It made the sharp edges dull. David called a few more times, left voicemails that grew more bitter. Emma and I listened to one together and then deleted them. Jennifer's divorce moved forward. Rachel quietly dropped off the radar. The woman from the hotel, I never found her name, was gone like a bad footnote. David, as far as I knew, retreated into the mess he'd made. For a while, my dreams were crowded with versions of myself. The Sarah who stayed, the Sarah who left. In the waking hours, I learned to be kinder to the one who'd fallen. She had loved honestly, even when the situation hadn't been honest. She'd been foolish sometimes, but she hadn't been cruel. There was a difference. A few months after the fallout, I went on my first date that wasn't a rebound or a dare. It was with someone from a networking event, a thoughtful, funny woman named Priya, who worked in product design. We went for coffee and talked about modular shelving and the correct approach to a dishwasher load and whether Seattle would ever stop raining. It was painfully ordinary and utterly unromantic and exactly what I needed. There were no fireworks, no life-altering confessions, just 2 people testing the surface of an easy conversation. We met again, and again Emma surprised me too. She enrolled in a certification course and started working at a small gallery on weekends. She called less with catastrophes and more with weirdly profound observations about art and the way people move through rooms. The sister I used to rescue started rescuing herself in small, stubborn ways. One late Sunday afternoon, Emma and I sat on my fire escape with cold beers, watching the city tilt toward evening. Do you ever regret it? She asked, tapping her bottle against mine. I thought about the months, the lies, the way the world had rearranged itself around a man who wasn't what he'd promised. I thought about the way the pain had forced me to take inventory of what I loved, what I wanted, what I wouldn't accept. I regret the hurt, I said. I regret some choices, but I don't regret what I learned or who I became afterwards, and I don't regret loving, even if it was messy. Emma rolled her eyes, the way she always did when I sounded like a TED Talk. You sound like a fortune cookie. Then let this fortune read, you will survive your bad choices and be boringly happy later. She laughed, which is what sisters do when they're trying not to be sentimental. Boringly happy sounds like a plan. 2 years later, at my little promotion party that my coworkers had insisted on, David's name came up, not with the heat of old wounds, but the dry, ridiculous acknowledgement that he had been a character in our lives for a time. Janet raised a glass to learning curves, and everyone laughed. The scar on my eyebrow from childhood still sat in the same place, unchanged by romance or scandal. Identical twins, the world still insisted, had some mystical bond. But what Emma and I really had was something less magical and more useful. The ability to tell the truth to each other, even when it hurt. When someone asked, during the after party, how my love life was doing, I said, better, slower, safer. I didn't say I was healed. Healing is an ongoing process, like keeping a plant alive. But I could say with honest surprise that I was okay. Emma and I still texted each other 5 times a day about nothing important. She still pulled me into ridiculous schemes. I still covered 1 or 2 of her shifts when she was genuinely in trouble. But we had a new boundary. No more identity swaps, no more pretending to be each other for convenience. That rule felt small and large all at once. Every so often, when I walked past Meridian on a warm evening and remembered the first time I slipped into that server uniform, I would smile with a little ache. Life had taught me something that felt permanent and true. The person who ruins your life sometimes only clears space for the person who will actually help you build it back. And that, I decided as I watched the sunset over the sound, was enough.